I never imagined a poor girl's kindness would make a millionaire's daughter eat again. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows that danced across the cracked pavement. I felt it in my bones, the weight of despair settling into my chest like a stone. That morning, I had seen Emily, the girl with the perfect hair and the sparkling eyes, our town's golden child. But that day, she was different. People whispered about her, their voices hushed with worry. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my heart pounding against my ribcage. It was like trying to catch a train that's already left the station. Emily, once vibrant, spent her days locked away in that massive mansion eating nothing but silence. They used to say she was too rich to care, but now it seemed she was too broken to even lift a fork. That's how I met Lily. She had dirt under her nails, and the smell of fried food clung to her like a shadow. She was always there at the diner where I worked, and she wore kindness like a threadbare cloak, worn but warm. "Did you hear? Emily didn't eat again today," Lily murmured, her brow furrowed in genuine concern. "It's like she's fading away." I grimaced at the thought, feeling a tight knot form in my stomach. Emily had everything, yet here she was, trapped in her own bubbly gilded cage. Lily's determination sparked something in me. What if we did something? My voice emerged, timid but hopeful. The idea struck me like a bolt. What if we could reach the unreachable? So, we hatched a plan. The next day, we gathered every leftover plate from the diner, saving bites of food not fit for our snooty clientele. I rolled the food in foil, the silver glinting in the dim light. My hands trembled. This act felt bigger than both of us. We arrived at that grand mansion, palatial walls looming over us like giants. The silence gripped me as we knocked. My heart raced, but we were about to test the boundaries of kindness. When Emily finally opened the door, I expected a spark of recognition, but her eyes were sunken, hollow, almost ghostly. But in that moment, the air shifted. Her gaze flickered down to the bags in our hands, curiosity drowning in a sea of fear. "We brought you something," I stammered, fighting to keep my voice steady. Tears threatened to spill, but I pushed them back, desperate to keep the hope alive. Her expression shifted, a spark of confusion mixed with a hint of hunger, but then it vanished, replaced with something darker. "Why would you do this?" she asked, tilting her head as if we were speaking a foreign language. And that's when it hit me. Her pain was deeper than just a physical hunger. It clawed at her insides, gnawing at the very essence of who she was. Could our simple act of kindness pierce through the walls she had built around herself? But just as I was ready to step forward, a loud voice interrupted us. A man I recognized from the shadows of the mansion, her father, glared down at us. His presence loomed like a storm cloud, heavy and suffocating. "What do you think you're doing?" he barked. I felt my heart drop. And before I could react, Emily retreated, her fragile frame shrinking back as if I had just shattered the last remnants of her hope. Then the door slammed in our faces, leaving me standing in the cold, wind whipping my cheeks, my heart racing with a million unanswered questions. What had I just unleashed? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a blur of gray. Each morning, the sun rose but left behind only shadows of longing for something that seemed increasingly out of reach. I returned to the diner, hoping that the clinking of cutlery and the patrons' laughter would drown out the echo of that door slamming shut. But it didn't work. Every bell that chimed at the entrance cut through me like a knife. Lily understood without needing to ask. She'd slip extra helpings of food onto my plate, offering her own quiet brand of support, even as worry etched deeper lines into her young face. "Do you think she'll be okay?" I asked one afternoon, my voice barely above a whisper. I saw the way her fingers danced nervously over the worn counter, each tap mirroring my own frantic thoughts. "I hope so," she answered, her optimism dimming under the weight of concern. "But she's trapped in there, you know. Sometimes the soul needs more than just food." Her words hung between us, heavy and pregnant with unspoken fears. We decided to continue visiting Emily. It was a ritual born from desperation. I'd knock gently on the door every other day, each time hoping for a different outcome. Each time, the answer came brisk and cold, wrapped in layers of silence. Until one afternoon, I arrived to find the door-ajar an invitation teasing at the edges of courage. With my heart in my throat, I stepped inside, the grandeur of the mansion swallowing me whole. The cool air grazed my skin, but more so, it felt like stepping into a different world, one ruled by loneliness. I didn't hear anything at first. The silence was oppressive, but then I caught the faintest whisper of sobs drifting from somewhere deep within the house. "Emily." I walked cautiously, the walls seeming to close in as I approached the source of the sound. There, in the midst of an elegant living room filled with expensive taste but lacking warmth, sat Emily on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees, tears running unchecked down her cheeks. "Why did you come?" she stammered, her voice cracking like the surface of ice ready to shatter. "You shouldn't have come." My chest tightened as I knelt beside her, hesitation battling against the instinct to comfort. "We care about you. We saw that you weren't well. We wanted to help." Emily's face twisted in anguish, and I felt the world spin as she looked up, her eyes pools of unfathomable sadness. "You don't understand. I'm not worth saving." Each word struck me like a slap. How could anyone believe they weren't worth saving? "You are worth every single bite of food we brought. You deserve every bit of kindness in the world." But instead of light, my words seemed to plunge us deeper into darkness. She shook her head fiercely, and I felt her pain curling around me, heavy and suffocating. "What do you know about worth? I have everything, and am still trapped. I can't escape this life." I wanted to reach out, to lift the burden she'd carried for what felt like an eternity. "You're not alone. You're not trapped. Let us help you." Just then, an unnerving sound echoed from the mansion's depths, the clanging of metal, followed by muffled voices. Dread lodged itself in my throat as footsteps pounded closer. Emily's eyes widened in fear, and in an instant, she recoiled as if the shadows were about to swallow her whole. "Please, you have to go," she urged, panic lacing her voice. "They can't know you're here. It's not safe." Before I could protest, she pulled me sharply to my feet, edging me toward the door, her hands trembling against mine. I wanted to fight against her fear, to explain that her safety was part of my mission now, but as the noise escalated, realization struck. In that moment, I understood. Whatever hell she faced behind these opulent walls was beyond my control, and keeping her hidden might be the only way to shield her from it. Just as I reached the threshold, a shadow loomed behind me. I turned, heart racing, and collided with the darkest eyes I'd ever seen, a man whose presence radiated authority. Emily's father. The air tasted bitter, thick with the tension that hung between us. "What are you doing here?" His voice was low and dangerous, oozing with a chilling command. Emily froze beside me, eyes wide as if the unthinkable had just crossed the threshold as well. I was just stopping by," I stammered, panic coursing through me as I felt my resolve begin to crumble. The man surveyed us, a predator sizing up his prey. "Emily, let's go. We don't need visitors." Still locked in the grip of his gaze, I sensed a fracture in the fabric of this moment. It wasn't just about Emily's hunger anymore, it was about confronting the chain that bound her, and the truth of her reality loomed darker than I had ever imagined. "Wait!" I shouted, surprising even myself with the intensity of my voice. "She needs help. She can't just live like this." His eyes flared with something I couldn't name, but it felt as sharp as glass. The air between us was electric, every second stretching into an eternity. And then, Emily's hand trembled against mine, a silent plea in the swirling tempest of emotions. "Please, let us help you, Emily." But with a forceful tug, her father pulled her away, the door swinging shut with a finality that left me gasping. The bravest of dreams began to dissolve into a chilling reality. Alone with my racing heart and the taste of despair lingering on my tongue, I faced the truth I didn't want to admit: our path would be filled with deeper challenges than I had ever dared to imagine. What darkness lay hidden behind those walls? And more importantly, what lengths would I go to break them down? The following days brought an unbearable weight, like a thick fog settling over my heart. Lily noticed the shift in my demeanor, her empathetic gaze lingered longer, and her cheerful banter turned quieter, more observant. I often caught her watching me, trying to decipher the turmoil shaking the foundations of my thoughts. I wish I could tell her that everything I once believed about Emilia, gentle soul trapped beneath the facade of wealth, had been shattered in that mansion. Instead, I put on a brave face, convincing myself that I had to stay strong for both of us. Each visit to the diner became a meticulously crafted performance, where I molded smiles and laughter in the hopes of encasing my sorrow within the outward mirage of resilience. I would pour endless coffee, humming tunes that barely scratched the surface of the panic churning inside me. But then, each night, as the clock hit midnight, echoes of that day replayed relentlessly in my mind. I couldn't escape the image of Emily's tear-stained face or her desperate plea for safety. One late evening, just after closing time, I received a text from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it, half expecting another desperate plea from Emily. Instead, there was a simple message: "Meet me at the park. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. The sudden flicker of hope ignited a flame I had thought extinguished. When I arrived at the park, the sun hung low, dipping into the horizon with a palette of oranges and pinks that painted the sky. I paced nervously beside the fountain, eager yet terrified of what would unfold. Moments stretched into eternity, and I began to wonder if I was a fool for coming, and then I saw her, a shadow darting between the trees, fragile yet determined. I rushed toward Emily, my heart hammering against my chest as I took in her disheveled appearance. "You came!" I exclaimed, relief washing over me like a tide that I had to. Her voice was a whisper, fragile yet fierce. "I need you to know what I'm up against." The two of us found a secluded bench shadowed by the leaves, wrapping ourselves in a temporary cocoon of safety. As she spoke, her words tumbled out, woven with fear and determination. "Dad wants me to marry someone. A man I don't know. He thinks it will secure our family's influence and wealth. I'm drowning under the weight of expectations, and he has no idea." Her voice cracked, and I could see the fight inside her ebbing away. "I can't breathe." That my breath caught in my throat as I listened, torn by the sense of helplessness. "Have you told him how you feel? Couldn't you just run away?" She shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes again. "It's not that simple. He controls everything. I feel so trapped, and going against him threatens everything, even your safety. I can't let him hurt you." A tremor coursed through her, and for a moment, it enveloped us both in an unshakable sorrow. I wanted to scream at the injustice of it all. How could someone so deserving of freedom be shackled by their lineage? But before I could voice my thoughts, Emily leaned closer, a sense of urgency flickering in her gaze. "That I need to find a way out, but I can't do it alone. Please, I need you to help me. We have to figure this out together." Her plea struck a chord deep within me, filling the void left in the wake of her father's harsh words. Together, we could challenge the darkness wrapping around her like a thick, suffocating fog. Just as I opened my mouth to reassure her, a rustle echoed nearby. I turned instinctively, my heart launching into terror as I caught sight of a figure lurking behind a tree. Her father, watching us with piercing intensity. "Emily!" he shouted, stepping into view, his presence a dark cloud eclipsing the light. "What did I tell you about running away? You have no idea how much you jeopardize everything." Panic surged through me, threatening to swallow me whole. Emily's eyes widened, and I could see the fight within her start to dim again, like the sun disappearing behind a thick curtain of gray. "Dad, please. Just listen to me," she begged, but he cut her off with an icy glare, and I felt a surge of Defiance within me, leave her alone. I exclaimed, rising from the bench, muscles coiling with adrenaline. His gaze sliced through me, casting a shadow over every bold word I had uttered. Stay out of this. You don't know what you're getting involved in. That harrowing moment, I realized how vastly unprepared I was to confront the very real danger staring back at me. Yet, in Emily's voice, I sensed a whisper of hope, challenging the depths of my fear. You don't get to decide what my life should look like. Emily shouted, her own boldness cracking through the veneer of fear. How could you think this is what I want? I'm not a pawn in your game. In that moment, everything felt suspended in time, a standoff between her freedom and the possessive grip of a father who couldn't see the damage he was causing. As they faced off, a fire ignited behind her eyes, a small flicker that promised rebellion against the dark, oppressive legacy, but then the dread washed over me like a tidal wave. I didn't want to see her broken again, and it felt like the ground beneath us had begun to crumble. Just when I thought the encounter couldn't escalate further, a phone rang, the shrill sound cutting through the tension. Her father looked down, and I could see the cold fury shift across his face. Your mother, he snapped. This isn't over, Emily. Not by a long shot. As he turned sharply to leave, something whispered between them, a quiet promise that hung heavier than the potential for confrontation. I stepped closer to Emily, determined to shield her from the doubts clawing at her. But the air was thick with uncertainty, leaving unanswered questions swirling in my mind. What would happen next? Would he come back? Would the sanctuary we had created in those stolen moments thread together, or would it drape over us like a shroud pulled tight? All I felt was the chilling realization that whatever lay ahead, our battle against the darkness was far from over. The days stretched on, each moment intertwined with uncertainty and apprehension. The air felt heavier without the sweet balm of hope that had ignited the previous afternoon. I spent restless nights replaying the look of determination in Emily's eyes juxtaposed with the terrifying dominance of her father. Though our meeting had become an unsettling turning point, I couldn't shake the chill of dread that followed. It clung to me like the settling dust of unresolved issues. At the diner, I nestled into a routine of distraction. I focused on the important things, taking orders, brewing coffee, and slipping plates to the regulars. Lily seemed to sense the facade, her eyes asking the questions I could never answer. Each time she cast me a lingering glance, I felt a pang of guilt for pulling her into my turbulent world. I longed to tell her everything, but what good would it do to transfer my burden onto someone else? On a particularly slow Tuesday, just as I wiped down the counter for the 100th time, a familiar figure walked in. It was Mr. Sullivan, the sharp-eyed man who had been a ghost in our conversations, the one person whose influence loomed larger than life over Emily. I froze, my heart racing as he scanned the diner. Would he recognize me? What if he brought trouble with him? He settled into the booth at the back, far enough away for an air of anonymity, yet close enough that I could feel his presence stalking the room. Part of me whispered to leave, to run, to hide, to escape into the forgotten corners of my mind. But another part, the stubborn part born out of desperation for Emily's freedom, urged me to act. Hey, are you all right? Lily's soft voice broke through my thoughts. She was standing beside me, concern etched across her features. You look pale. Should I get you some water? Yeah, just give me a second. I nodded absent-mindedly, my focus drifting back to Mr. Sullivan. Should I confront him? Or would that only pull me deeper into a mess I was unprepared for? As I hesitated, I noticed a familiar warmth ripple through the diner, felt it in the half-whispering laughter of the late afternoon crowd. They were kind souls, regulars who stirred their coffee with laughter and shared their prayers like secret gifts. In those snippets of gentleness, I found unexpected strength. But it wasn't enough to drown out Mr. Sullivan's looming presence. In a moment of sheer impulsivity, I grabbed my apron and strode over to his booth. My voice wavered slightly but held fast, a quiet fury coiling around my courage. Mr. Sullivan. He glanced up, surprise flickering across his stern expression. You, he stated, as if contempt for the very existence of this interaction seeped into every syllable. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same, I said, fighting against the tremor in my hands. What do you want with Emily? His lips curled into a condescending smirk. You don't want to involve yourself in this mess. It's far above your pay grade. If it threatens her, it's already my business. The words tumbled out before I knew it, and a flicker of triumph coursed through me, momentarily silencing the bargaining voice telling me to retreat. That he leaned back, assessing me with an intensity that made me want to shrink away, but the fierce belief in Emily's right to choice anchored me. You have no idea what you are entangling yourself in. This is dangerous territory for both of you. I don't care. The words were a battle cry now, forcing their way to the forefront. Emily deserves to shape her own life. A flicker of amusement sparked in his dark eyes, but it was laced with dang air. A predator enjoying the hunt. You think she has choices? That the whims of her heart will change things? Power holds more sway than foolish dreams. Your sentimentality won't fend off consequences. Memories of Emily, her fierce eyes ablaze with the promise of rebellion, surged through my mind. Those consequences won't stop me from standing with her. You can't control her forever, but I can try. His tone had shifted, losing mirth and gaining a menacing edge. Keep your distance, or you will regret stepping into an arena you've never prepared for. Slowly, I backed away from the booth, my heart pounding. The warmth of the diner now felt encased in ice. I returned to the counter, my thoughts racing with fear and adrenaline. Lily watched my return, her brow arching in confusion and concern. What happened? Nothing. I can't handle, I muttered, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. But the moment felt frail, a delicate construct doomed to collapse at any moment. Just then, as the bell above the door chimed, a gust of cool air swept in, accompanied by a weighty shadow. I turned to find Emily standing at the entrance, her face pale yet tinged with something like resolve. Our eyes locked, and I could see she was searching for something. Reassurance, maybe. But then something shifted behind her as she entered the diner. Hot on her heels was Mr. Sullivan, his expression poised with cold determination. Emily! I called, a primal surge gripping my heart. But in that breathless moment, I realized the danger was looming once again, threatening to swallow us whole. The power play had just escalated, and my fortress of hope was trembling on unstable ground. The bell above the door echoed ominously as Emily entered, a crack in the careful routine I had built around myself. In that split second, time seemed to stall. Mr. Sullivan's presence tightened like a noose, and my heart sank watching the way her confidence flickered, momentarily dimmed by the shadow of her father. Emily, wait. I rushed toward her, willing her not to see the threat embodied in the man stalking behind her. But she stopped, her gaze darting between me and Mr. Sullivan, a tempest of emotions swirling in her eyes. It's okay, she said, though her voice quivered. Tu wanted to talk to you, Delmar. Sullivan strode to her side, his imposing figure blocking the light from reaching her as if to obscure her hopes. Talk. Is that what you're calling this? His tone was a razor, sharp enough to slice through resolve. Dad, Emily protested, her voice rising slightly. The din of the diner became a distant murmur, but the weight of the moment bore down on us. The regulars, usually filled with chatter and warmth, quieted in unison, their attention drawn to the standoff in their midst. You're not going to have some foolish discussion here, he stated coldly. You have responsibilities, obligations. Running off to a diner to indulge in childish fantasies is not one of them. The atmosphere crackled, the air thick with unspoken words and tangled emotions. I wanted to challenge his authority, to tell him the dreams of his daughter belonged to her alone. But the reality of Emily's situation anchored me, a stone in my gut. Maybe I want to have those childish fantasies, Dad, she shot back, her voice growing stronger. Maybe I want a life outside of your expectations. Mr. Sullivan's face darkened, like a storm cloud gathering. You think you can defy me? You're merely a piece on my chessboard, Emily. Remember your position. With a fierce twist in my heart, I intervened, stepping closer to Emily. No one should be treated like a piece in a game, I said, feeling the warmth of her presence flow through me, rekindling a spark of fight. She deserves to choose her path. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of surprise in Mr. Sullivan's eyes, as if he hadn't expected anyone to stand up to him, especially not someone like me. But then his expression hardened, and I could sense the danger brewing. "Stay out of this," he warned, his voice a low growl, an assertion of his will that sent chills racing through me. "This is between my daughter and me, maybe it should be about what Emily wants." My outburst erupted as the truth of our feelings surged beneath the surface, wading through the trepidation and anxiety that had built up like a dam waiting to burst. "Emily." I turned to her, brushing against the edges of vulnerability. "If you don't want this life, you can fight for more." Silence fell heavily, thick mist enveloping us as Emily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I want to fight," she whispered, the confession tremulous but clear, a promise formed in defiance of the world that sought to erase her dreams. And just as the hope began to unfurl, Mr. Sullivan took a menacing step forward, a shadow darkening the space between us. "You don't know what you're inviting into your life, do you? Your romantic notions could lead to severe repercussions for both of you." "Let her speak," I insisted, my heart racing, every instinct urging me to protect her. "Whatever the consequences, she deserves to choose. No, he hissed, his voice dripping with disdain, "this is bigger than you." In that moment, I felt the ground shift as Emily took a deep breath, fear and courage intertwining in her gaze. "You can't keep me shackled to your will forever. I want to be free to chase my dreams." Slipping past Mr. Sullivan, she stood before me, a flicker of bravery igniting between us. For the briefest moment, the world around us faded, leaving just the two of us suspended in possibility. Her small hand grasped mine, a tether of solidarity against all that threatened us, but Mr. Sullivan opened his mouth to respond, his fury palpable, when the diner's door burst open a second time. This time, it was a group of men. Stern-faced and dressed in suits, shuffling in as if summoned by the tension thickening in the air. They whispered to Mr. Sullivan with urgent nods, their presence turning the air electric with foreboding. "Dad, who are they?" Emily asked, the trembling of her voice betraying her bravado as she pulled closer to me. "They're here because of you," he stated coldly, brushing off her question with an icy disdain that sent chills down my spine, and in the flicker of an instant, I knew we were standing on the brink of something vast and unforgiving, a storm dauntless enough to swallow us whole. The weight of uncertainty pressed down hard, and I felt a new layer of fear seep into my bones, one built not just on what we stood to lose, but on the prospect of what Mr. Sullivan could unleash now that we had defied him. As I took a hesitant step toward Emily, my heart a chaotic mix of dread and courage, the world around us seemed poised on the edge of a precipice. Unseen fates held their breath, and in that charged moment, I realized we had ignited a battle that had only just begun, one that might cost us everything. The diner, once a refuge of familiar faces and warm laughter, now felt like a prison built of tension and uncertainty. As the men in suits advanced, I caught Emily's eyes widening in fear. Her grip tightened around my hand, a delicate plea for strength amid the encroaching shadows. Mr. Sullivan turned to them, the menace in his gaze spiking the air with danger that clung to us like a cloak. "Get them out. Now," he ordered, his voice low but authoritative, slicing through the murmurs of patrons who had resumed their conversations, albeit with stolen glances our way. "Demar Sullivan," one of the men said, his tone almost respectful, "we need to discuss your daughter. It's a matter of utmost importance." Emily's breath hitched, and I glanced down at her, the distress etched in her features igniting a fierce need to shield her. I could sense the peril lurking just beyond our table, an intricate web woven from her father's desire to control and the unknown motives of these men. That I asked this about her. I found my voice, stern and unwavering, surprising even myself at the ferocity it held. "You can't just barge in. They have every right," Mr. Sullivan snapped, cutting me off. "This is not your concern. Emily, stay back. That I know when something's wrong, Dad." She shot back. "I won't just stand here and watch as you make decisions without me." The confrontation reverberated through the diner, a wave that pulled customers deeper into the turmoil, their willingness to ignore the drama shattered like fragile glass. I searched Emily's face, desperation mingling with anger and defiance, a rare glimpse of her spirit that lit a small flame in the darkness. The suit-clad men exchanged glances, one of them speaking up. "We're here to make sure she's safe, Mr. Sullivan. Your business dealings are attracting unwarranted attention." We need to act quickly. What kind of attention? Emily's voice trembled but held a firmness that belied her fear. What's going on, Dad? He hesitated for a heartbeat, his facade slipping before reasserting itself, the air thickening with secrets that loomed like ominous clouds. You don't need to know, Emily. It's my life. She implored, her resolve roaring against the natural order he had imposed. I deserve to know what threats you're protecting me from. I stepped in, standing beside her, shoulder to shoulder, a united front against impending gloom. She has every right to understand what's happening. We're not backing down, not now. As if sensing the tide shifting, Mr. Sullivan's expression hardened. You should stay out of this. You don't understand the magnitude of what could happen. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I know people who care, Emily said softly, tears glistening in her eyes but mixed with steel-like determination. And I won't give up my chance to live the life I deserve, even if you can't accept it. In that charged moment, a flicker of doubt crossed Mr. Sullivan's features, just for a second. But then he regained his composure, filling the space with his customary menace. Then let's remove the distractions. He gestured to the men, who stepped closer, ominous and ready to enforce his will. Shall get no more talking back to me. I will do what is necessary to protect my interests and, by extension, hers. Emily stepped forward, pulling free of my grasp, grounding herself in the chaos swirling around us. What interests? You make it sound like I'm some commodity, not your daughter. I won't be your pawn. The moment hung taut like a thread ready to snap when an elderly woman from the back of the diner suddenly stood. She had always been a comforting presence in our community, often sharing stories of resilience over coffee. You have to listen to her, Mr. Sullivan. She's right. Chains are only as strong as their weakest link. We all turned to her, the diner falling silent again, the woman's frail voice somehow embodying the heart of innocence against Mr. Sullivan's wrath. You can't control someone's heart forever. Sometimes, love is stronger than fear. A flicker of vulnerability passed through Mr. Sullivan, though he masked it quickly. This is not a conversation. For the likes of you, he spat, dismissing her as if her words were a fly buzzing irritatingly in his ear, but the old woman stood firm. Perhaps it's time you realize that true strength comes from trust and understanding, not fear. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, resonating deeper than expected. I felt a shift between the townsfolk, a surge of solidarity among those gathered, as whispers grew louder in support of Emily's fight. Suddenly, the diner's door swung wide, and a figure entered, cloaked in shadows. We turned to see a woman in a long coat, her face partly obscured by a scarf. As she stepped forward, her striking eyes locked on Emily. I've been looking for you, she said, her voice that of a calm breeze against a raging storm, firm yet tender. Who are you? Emily stammered, glancing back at me, uncertainty dancing in her gaze. The woman took a step closer, and for the first time, I sensed a ripple of hope piercing through the tension. I'm here to help you find out who you really are. Before she could explain further, the other men shifted, tension escalating once again. Mr. Sullivan glared, his jaw set, bracing for conflict, while Emily clutched at my arm as a tumult of emotions churned within her. Emily, stay behind me, I urged, knowing her father would not take this intrusion lightly. Don't you see? It's happening, the mysterious woman insisted, urgency threading through her tone. You're not trapped. You're on the brink of discovering your true strength, if you'll dare to step into the unknown. In that moment, amidst the swirling chaos, I realized we were at a fateful crossroads. Emily faced choices that could alter everything, and whether we walked away safely depended on how we braced for the storm ahead. It was a battle of wills, and the outcome remained shrouded in uncertainty, darkness festering in the corners of the diner as hope flickered tenuously, threatening to extinguish in the coming storm. The atmosphere in the diner was thick with a palpable tension, the kind that raises the tiny hairs on the back of your neck. I looked between Emily and the mysterious woman, a chill running down my spine. Here, amidst the clinking of dishes and murmurs, lay a crossroads of fate, every soul in that room holding their breath, waiting for the inevitable clash to unfold. Who are you? Mr. Sullivan barked. His voice was laced with the kind of authority that tried to impose fear, but in the face of the unknown woman's silent resolve, it felt almost hollow. "You have no business here, but I have every right to be here, especially when it concerns Emily," she replied, her words flowing like a river of calm in the raging torrent of emotion swirling around us. "She deserves to know the truth. She deserves to be free." The diner's eyes bounced from the woman to Emily, whispers rising again, a tide of curiosity and concern. Mr. Sullivan's expression darkened as he exchanged glances with the men by his side, their silence an indication that they too were uncertain about this unexpected twist. I clutched Emily's hand tighter. She needed all the support she could get. "Out," Mr. Sullivan seethed, venom coating his words. His tone sent shivers down my spine, and I could see the flicker of resentment and fear thrumming in his demeanor, the mask of invulnerability cracking ever so slightly. Emily's resolve, however, only seemed to strengthen. "I want to hear what she has to say, Dad. I can't live in this shadow of ignorance anymore. You can't keep me locked away forever," she stated, her voice rising above the chaos. A few diners nodded in agreement, emboldened. It was as though solidarity was awakening in our little community, a refusal to let fear reign over honest dialogue. The elderly woman from the back, her eyes gleaming with wisdom, chimed in. "You can't cage a bird and expect it to sing the same song. Let her find her wings, Mr. Sullivan. How long can you bear the weight of her silence?" With each word they spoke, I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. The community, once passive onlookers, was rising. It gave me hope and unexpected kindness in a sea of uncertainty. I whispered to Emily, "You don't have to be trapped." "Not anymore." The mysterious woman took another step closer, reaching out as if to grasp Emily's hand. "You're not bound by the chains of your past, Emily. There's a world beyond this, a life waiting for you to claim it. Your father cannot dictate your destiny, that I have to know," Emily said, her voice trembling like the fragile wings of a butterfly eager to escape its cocoon. "I want to understand the truth about my life. Whatever it is, I'm ready." Just as the hope swelled, Mr. Sullivan's expression morphed into one of fury as if a storm were brewing. "Enough!" he thundered, his fist hitting the table with a bone-rattling thud. "You think you can just walk in here and spin tales? You know nothing about this world, about the dangers lurking in the shadows. You'll only bring more chaos." The weight of his words hit me, they rested on my chest like an anchor. What other dangers did Emily face? What world did he belong to that still remained hidden from us? I sought Emily's gaze, the spark of defiance still flickering in her deep-set eyes, but I could also sense her trepidation. Before I could reassure her, the woman's voice rose above the rancor, steady and unwavering. "You underestimate your daughter, Mr. Sullivan. She has the strength to navigate this labyrinth of truths if you would only let her." Damar. Sullivan met the woman's confident gaze, battle lines drawn in the sand. "Your little games will not work on me. I know what you are trying to do, and you will not succeed. Emily is not your key to whatever scheme you're concocting." "Dad, stop!" she cried, her voice cutting through the commotion. "I'm tired of being hidden away. I'm tired of being treated as if I'm some fragile thing that needs protecting. I'm ready to fight for my own life, whatever that may mean." Then, in a moment fraught with emotion, the tension shattered, Emily turned her focus back to the mysterious woman. "Tell me about the world outside, about what I should know and who I really am. I want to hear it all." Just then, from outside the diner, sirens blared, cutting through the charged atmosphere, the sound growing louder as they approached. My heart raced. This was no ordinary disturbance. I exchanged a glance with Emily, panic creeping into her expression as realization dawned on her. "What is happening?" she whispered. For a brief moment, all eyes shifted to the door, the looming potential of disaster eclipsing the pressing conflict between her and her father. Mr. Sullivan turned, fury battling with worry for a fleeting moment before he squared his jaw. "We need to leave now." But before anyone could react, the doors burst open, and two police officers strode in, their badges gleaming under the diner's fluorescent lights. "We're looking for Emily Sullivan," one called out over the murmurs that arose in the diner, eyes darting between the officers and Emily. She's a missing person. We've received a tip-off." The room fell silent, the weight of the sudden revelation pressing down like a fog. Emily's face went pale, fear spilling across her features. "Missing person?" she echoed, the world collapsing around her like a house of cards under pressure. In that instant, everything shifted as a new awakening began to unfold, a journey neither of us could have dared to imagine was just beginning. And it was clear that the tangled threads of truth and danger were only beginning to intertwine. The room remained hushed, each diner frozen in a tableau of shock and uncertainty. I could feel Emily's hand slipping from mine, her digits losing the grip they had on reality, morphing into mere wisps of air. The police officers advanced toward her, their expressions a mixture of concern and professionalism that left no room for comfort. "Are you Emily Sullivan?" one of them asked, his voice steady but edged with urgency. I am," Emily stammered, but her tone carried an emotional tremor that betrayed the vast expanse of confusion inside her mind. Themar Sullivan, who had seemed like an immovable mountain, now wavered, pride battling panic. He stepped forward, an instinctual move to shield his daughter, but it only left him standing bare against the storm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "There's been a mistake," he interjected, desperation clawing at his voice. The officer met Mr. Sullivan's gaze and held it, unyielding. "We are obligated to follow up on this tip. There are concerns about your daughter's well-being, Mr. Sullivan." In the fray of emotions, I saw Emily recoil slightly, as if the air had been knocked out of her. It had always been clear that her father's stability was a facade, yet now it started to unravel before her very eyes. "What do you mean concerns?" she whispered, heartbreak lacing each syllable. "Let's step outside for a moment," the officer suggested, his tone gentle, but firm. "No," Mr. Sullivan snapped, cutting through the growing unease in the air. "I will not allow this charade to continue." "What kind of an accusation is this?" "This is about ensuring that she is safe," the officer replied, his voice calm yet authoritative. "If she is missing, we need to know why and how." At that moment, the reason why Mr. Sullivan had felt the need to fabricate a normal life for Emily flashed in front of my eyes. The truth had long been cloaked beneath layers of secrecy, but what lay beneath his overprotectiveness was a vast sea of fear of what would happen if the truth was laid bare. Emily turned, her gaze piercing through the uncertainty. "Dad, is there something you haven't told me?" Her voice was steady, showcasing a newfound strength, a hardened resolve birthed out of the turmoil. Mr. Sullivan faltered, the impact of her question was like a thunderclap in a still sky. "Emily, please," he began, but the weight of what lay unsaid bound his tongue. "Do you trust me?" she asked, vulnerability threading into her words beneath the defiance. He hesitated, anguish etching deeper lines into the terrain of his face. Before he could answer, I stepped forward, emboldened by a bravery I didn't know I possessed. "She deserves to know the truth, Mr. Sullivan. Hiding answers only keeps her in chains." The air had thickened again, heavy with secrets yearning to be uncovered. And then, as if a dam had burst, Emily spoke again. "I need to know if I'm really missing. I need to know the consequences of whatever shadow you've been casting over my life." A quiet intensity settled over her. You could feel everyone in the diner holding their breath, the words reverberating off the walls and into hearts that had only just begun to heal. The officers exchanged looks, and with a nod, one of them stepped beside Emily. "We can talk outside, Ms. Sullivan." "No," Mr. Sullivan interjected harshly. The look on Emily's face cut deeper than any words he could have uttered. The fear of losing his daughter was palpable, but so was the fear of losing the control he had held over her life. Before I had a chance to speak, the elderly woman from the back, who had not spoken since the officers arrived, intervened. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes fixing on Mr. Sullivan, a glimmer of compassion and unyielding strength flickering within her gaze. "Sometimes the truth opens doors we never knew existed. Don't let your fear cage her any longer." An unexpected wave of solidarity washed over me, a wave that seemed to envelop Emily, offering her shelter. But our silence hung heavy in the air, and I could see the struggle coursing through Emily's heart. "Dad, please," she said softly, and I could have sworn I felt the warmth of her bravery in that moment. Let me choose my own path. After an eternal silence, Mr. Sullivan's shoulders sagged, defeat penned into each graceful line. Just promise me you'll be careful, he whispered, emotion dawning over his features. With that, a sliver of hope sparked within me, whispering that maybe Emily would take her first steps toward freedom. But just as she turned toward the officer ready to follow him, a sharp ping interrupted the moment, the diner's phone ringing shrilly. The officer hesitated, then turned back. "Do you mind if I take this call first?" As he answered, we all could sense the tide turning once more. An unsettling expression crossed his face as he listened intently. "What do you mean she's been found?" he murmured, a mix of disbelief and urgency lacing his voice. Emily's heart sank as if opening a door only to find an empty abyss on the other side. I held my breath, and when he ended the call, his eyes locked onto Emily's, filled with a mixture of caution and uncertainty. "Emily, we need to talk. It seems there's more to this than we initially thought. It appears someone is looking for you more than we realized." With those words, the weight of the world settled on Emily and a new storm brewed on the horizon, a revelation that could either set her free or ensnare her in darker chains. All I could do was hold on to her hand, knowing that the road ahead was fraught with peril but hopeful for the light that could pierce through the shadows. Emily's breath hitched in her throat, her wide eyes reflecting a world of uncertainty and fear. The officer's tense expression conveyed only a fraction of the weight hanging in the air, an unspoken urgency that threatened to engulf everything we thought we understood. "Can we step outside?" His tone demanded no argument, but Emily hesitated. Looking around the diner, it felt like each pair of eyes was locked onto her, strangers momentarily united in concern. Her heart raced as she glanced at her father, who now wore an expression resembling defeat, vulnerability laid bare. "Now," she whispered, as if expecting the universe to sigh and strike a deal on time itself. "Yes. We need to clarify the situation," he insisted, casting a quick glance over his shoulder as if wary someone was listening too closely. Negotiating one last silent conversation with her father, she searched his gazia mirror reflecting years of unspoken complexities. "You'll be okay, right?" she asked, her tone cautious yet somehow hopeful. "I'm here," he reassured her, his voice crackling with unspoken promises. Reluctantly, Emily stepped away from her father, her spirit unwilling to yield, yet her body heavy with trepidation. I wanted nothing more than to follow, to shield her from whatever lay beyond those diner doors, but instead, I felt like an anchor, too burdened by the unfolding reality. Stepping outside, the world felt alive with unfiltered chaos. The street noise rushed back into focus, a stark reminder of the life that existed beyond the thick walls of that diner. The officer led Emily a few paces away from the entrance, where the chatter dimmed and muffled whispers intertwined with the bare branches of the trees lining the street. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice lower, yet still firm. "There's been an urgent development. A search party initially formed for you has located your whereabouts in a town nearby." The officer paused, and I could see the gears working behind Emily's glazed eyes as she absorbed his words. "Where?" Her voice trembled, emotions colliding head-on, fear and curiosity grappling in her chest. "It appears someone has been tracking your movements. They believe you were," he hesitated, as though bracing for impact, "kidnapped." The word hung in the air like smoke, dense and suffocating. For a moment, time warped, and everything felt unreal. The ground beneath me quaked. My thoughts raced. Who could want her? How could any of this betrayal be possible? I don't understand," Emily stammered. "Kidnapped? But I've been right here." "Your disappearance wasn't an accident," he continued, urgency lacing his words. "Whoever this is, they're tied to your father. This isn't just about you anymore." Glimmering fragments of a truth she had been grappling with began to crystallize in her mind. A horde of questions flooded her consciousness, clashing against answers she didn't yet possess. "My father?" she breathed, looking back toward Mr. Sullivan, who had stepped outside to hear the news. "What does he have to do with this?" In that moment, everything shifted, and the fragile connection they had forged began to threaten rupture once more. Mr. Sullivan had been her protector, her unwavering fortress against the world's chaos. But hadn't his secrets been the very walls caging her in? "I need to know, you need to trust me, Emily, because this is bigger than either of us," the officer implored. "Your father could be hiding dangerous truths." A storm brewed within Emilia, fierce tempest of betrayal, confusion, and a longing for clarity. The innocent facade of her life seemed to be a carefully constructed mask, one that might shatter with just the right pressure. Her trust wavered, yet that flicker of familial loyalty tugged at her heart de mar. Sullivan stepped closer, fear etched into his features. "Emily, I never meant for you to find out like this. They're after me, too." She recoiled as if struck. "After you? Why? What have you done? What are you hiding?" Each question carried its own weight, a desperate plea for the truth. "That I swear, I was protecting you," he sighed, his voice quivering between desperation and despair. The officer's eyebrows furrowed deeper, and for a fleeting second, I sensed his discomfort shift between them. "Emily, you have to consider that you may not even be safe with him right now." Suddenly, the night air buzzed with urgency when a black sedan screeched to a halt nearby, headlights cutting through the dark like knives, illuminating the vulnerability of our lives. Inside, a figure emerged, a woman with wild, unkempt hair, eyes wide and frantic. "Emily!" she shouted, rushing toward us. Heart racing, I recognized her. Alexia, a girl from school whose presence was felt but seldom noticed. A glance exchanged between Emily and me flickered insight. Alexia must have sensed something amiss long before any officer arrived. "How do you know her?" the officer questioned sharply. She's my friend," Emily replied, her voice steadier now, a layer of defiance creeping back in. "She'd never hurt me," but the uncertainty was there, clinging to each heartbeat. The officer peered into the approaching darkness, senses heightened. "Stay back," he warned, drawing his weapon. The chaos pitched higher, emotions simmering in the air, desperate for clarity that remained shrouded in shadows. In that moment, uncertainty pinballed between hope and despair. Emily's friend could bridge the gap of familiarity, yet at the same time, who was she really? Did we truly know anything at all, or were we shackled to cycles of trust based on distorted truths? And just as doubt began to chase the thread of hope we'd grasped, a deafening crack echoed, a sound of something breaking, of a promise shattering like glass. Emily's glance flickered between her father and Alexia, both poised to defend her in ways only they knew how, yet surrounded by a storm of conflict far greater than the fragile boundaries of friendship. "That I don't want to live in a shadow anymore," Emily declared, her voice cutting through the rising tension. "I want to know the truth, even if it hurts, if it means I can find my way back to myself." As our hearts pounded in sync with the chaos weaving around us, we braced for what the truth would unveil, because darkness loomed on the edge, carrying whispers of secrets too powerful to remain hidden. The sun dipped below the horizon, shrouding the world in a blanket of twilight as Emily stood at the precipice of revelation. I felt the weight of that moment pressing down on us, fragile, yet electric with possibility. The shadows stretched out like fingers, pulling at our defiance, tempting us to retreat into the safety of the known. But as I looked into Emily's eyes, pools of fierce determination glimmering beneath the surface, I knew we could not turn back. "Who are you?" Her voice was steady despite the turmoil brewing around us. It hung in the air like a challenge, a refusal to cower in the face of fear. Alexia stopped just short of us, her breath hitching, the urgency in her eyes like a flame threatening to explode. "I came to find you, Emily. I overheard your father talking. There are people, dangerous people, who want to control you. They want to use you for something I can't understand, but I know it's wrong." Emily's expression shifted, caught between disbelief and burgeoning resolve. "What do you mean, control me?" Before Alexia could respond, the officer's focus zeroed in on Mr. Sullivan. "We need to address what's just threatened this family, and that cannot happen here in the open. Emily, you need to come with us." His tone shifted to one I had never encountered, not authoritative, but a plea wrapped in urgency. "We can't protect you if you stay in this line of fire." I felt the pull of choice enveloping us, a tug of war between the safety of silence and the price of truth. "Wait." I interjected, my voice laced with trepidation. You're not taking her anywhere until we have answers. Emily's hand grasped for mine, intertwining our fates once again. I won't just be swept away. Not again. The determination radiating from her was infectious, a spark igniting deep within my chest, yet, Mr. Sullivan's eyes darkened, trembling on the brink of collapsing under the weight of his decisions. You have no idea what you're getting involved in, Emily. Sometimes the truth brings darkness in its wake. Dad, I need the truth. Emily cried, her voice a tempest of emotions. I refuse to be a pawn in your games. If I'm to find my place in this world, it has to be my choice. The officer looked between Emily and her father with a careful expression that suggested he was balancing on the edge of chaos. Let's take this to a safer space. We can clear this up. And just like that, I knew we had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The urgency of the moment pulsated through the air, wrapping around us like a storm preparing to break. Emily, trust me. I stepped closer to her, each word thick with emotion. This is the beginning of your truth, not the end. You are stronger than you know. With a hesitant nod, she glanced back at her father as though weighing both her past and future with a single glance. I want to find my wings. And then, the air shifted, it thickened with the anticipation of inevitable truth. Emily took a step away from her father's shadow, her path illuminated by determination, and as she did, it felt like chains began to crumble, a symphony of strength resonating against years of fear. The elderly woman from the diner, sensing the raw energy of change, suddenly appeared by our side, her voice soft yet firm. Your path is yours alone, Emily. Don't let others define who you are. Remember, true courage often means pursuing the hardest truths. And just as hope began to swell like a tide, the ground rumbled beneath our feet, a warning extending into the depths of evening exacerbated by the impending storm. Enough! Mr. Sullivan roared, authority ripping through the air like a whip. You will pay for this impertinence. You all will regret crossing me. But just as the dark clouds began to close in, I sensed something begin to shift inside Emily. The fear was real, but something even greater burned within her, an intrinsic light begging to be released. Whatever consequences follow, she declared, her voice rising, shaking off the shackles of her father's command, know this, I will never go back to being caged again. And with that, the winds howled to life, swirling around us, an unmistakable sign of the tempest brewing both within and outside. Suddenly, sirens pierced the air, and the shadowy figure of a man emerged from the darkness bordering the diner, dressed in all black, with an approach both ominous and calculated. It was a game-changer. The moment hung suspended, tipping precariously on the edge of revelation. You're not safe here, he warned in a tone like gravel. Who are you? I shouted, protective instincts surging to the forefront, someone looking to help if you'd let me. His gaze flickered from Emily to the officer, hands raised. But we have to move, now. Fear intertwined with decision, and as I held Emily's hand tighter, we turned to face the uncertainty ahead. In that chaos, awkward unity emerged. We trust you, Emily said. But no more secrets. Then let's run, he urged, urgency thrumming beneath every word. And in that moment, we took steps into the unknown, hearts aligned in defiance against whatever darkness gathered behind us. The shadows no longer felt burdensome, they became a canvas ready to be illuminated by the colors of hope, truth, and unyielding strength. As we sprinted away, weaving through the twilight, the sirens grew distant behind us, a harbinger of the journey ahead. And despite the ache in my soul, one thought clung to my heart, burning fiercely like an anchor in the storm. No matter how dark the night becomes, I would always find my way back to her light, and in that truth, as we ran, I felt the roots of my own courage unfurl, ready to blossom amid the chaos, a bond created through fear, hope, and love that illuminated even the darkest paths. The last night of shadows would never define us again, tomorrow would bring the dawn of new beginnings, and this time, we wouldn't be running from our fears but toward the beautiful, terrifying truth of our own choices. And that made all the difference.